Teachers on Fire. Welcome to another edition of the Teachers on Fire Roundtable. I'm joined by 5 guests this morning, and our topic is Chromebooks. How are we using Google Chromebooks? What are some of our wins? What are some of our frustrations? What are some best practices and strategies that we can share? I am an 8th grade teacher. I'm a part-time assistant principal this year. I picked an interesting year to take on some administrative responsibilities. And I have a room full of Chromebooks. They reside in a tower in my room, and so my students use them every single day. I should also mention I'm the host of the Teachers on Fire podcast. So if you are a podcast listener, make sure to subscribe to me over there. I'm going to go now to my 5 other guests and ask them to introduce themselves. Tell us who you are. Tell us a little bit about your current context. Is it hybrid? Is it remote? Is it face-to-face? And tell us about what Chromebooks look like in your teaching and learning context. So welcome to all of you. Justine, let's start with you.
Thanks so much, Tim. I'm really excited to be here. I'm in just south side of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. In Elk Island Catholic District is the district I work in. We have 17 brick and mortar schools, and as well as a online learning center, St. Isidore, and that is where I am teaching this year. We also launched an online Chesterton Academy, so more of a classical learning, and I'm also teaching there. So I'm fully online this year, teaching grades 9 to 11. Last year I taught grade 2, which was actually my first year teaching last year. I'm kind of late to the teaching game. And so what a first year I had. It was amazing. So it was a great introduction to, emergency teaching. So yes, we are a one-to-one district. We have been for Chromebooks since, I think 2016, 2017, which means our grade 4s to 12 come to school with their own devices. And we, of course, recommend Chromebooks. So that's kind of my backstory at this point.
So something I'll be asking and listening for as we go around, I just want to clarify this in my own mind. And by the way, welcome to all of our guests here joining us live on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. I've got some family in the house, which is really fun as well. Could you tell us if the devices that your students use, are they provided by the district, or do families provide their own?
In our district, it's the families provide them. So that is part of their, for grade 4s to 12. So our grade, kindergarten to grade 3, when we started out, we do have Chromebooks or Chrome carts and stuff at the school. But we can talk about the aging of those as being a challenge. But yeah, so that is the current, it's grade 4 to 12 must have a device. Yeah.
All right. Already, I'm very interested, Justine, in hearing more about that, because I can imagine some potential pitfalls and challenges when you mandate to your parent and learning community, you must buy these devices. I can imagine there would be some interesting issues that come up around that. Scott Nunes, a fellow I am quite familiar with. I was blessed to appear on his podcast. I can see his logo right there, Education Today with Scott Nunes. Scott, tell us about your context and how Chromebooks figure in.
Yeah, so I'm an ed tech coach out of Modesto, California with Modesto City Schools. And this is a new position for me. Like Tim, I picked quite a time to get into this new and exciting position. And we have transitioned from mostly Windows devices to Chromebooks. Thankfully, we were already planning this shift, and we were planning on rolling out about 15,000 Chromebooks before the virus and pandemic hit. So we had those ready to go. And what we ended up doing was converting a large portion of our Windows devices to Chromebooks. Okay. Probably about March through April, and maybe just a little bit into May. And now we're up and running, and we love it. It was a good transition.
Awesome. Well, that's a big jump, right, from the PC world into Chromebooks, and I'm sure you faced a little bit of opposition from someone There are some very loyal PC fans out there.
I was one of those. They haven't completely won me over, but I think there's a strong case for Chromebooks.
I'm going to work on it.
Well, someone who can make that case very, very well is John Sowas. John, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. I'm so thankful that you could join us this morning.
Well, good morning, everyone. Great to be here. Joining from Michigan, not on the left coast of North America like everyone else so far. I was a high school science teacher and high school principal, actually director of online learning for a couple of years. I am a recovering iPad teacher. So when I was in the classroom, my school, I was in the classroom in the period where, we had a computer lab and every teacher took their class to the computer lab, once a semester. It was like a big deal. It's like, here's the tech lesson for the year. Okay, check the box, done, moving on. We went from that to handing every single kid an iPad. Now, I'm not anti-iPad in that, like, do whatever works for you. But having taught in the environment, what I will say, one iPad is great. 1,000 iPads, not so much.
Mm-hmm.
The brilliance of the Chromebook is the flexibility from a mass deployment management perspective. And I saw that, and now that's what I do full time. I run Chromebook.com, Chromebook Classroom podcast. My focus is helping teachers figure out ways to use Chromebooks in interesting, inspirational ways. So Apple does a wonderful job of highlighting the creative potential of iPads. Apple is wonderful at marketing. Google is terrible. Chromebooks can be very awesome and creative, but they don't promote that. And so I have single-handedly decided that that is my life's goal and mission, to show teachers the cool, fun, engaging things they can do with Chromebooks.
And just to be clear, you don't receive, and I'm putting you on the spot here, but I don't think you receive any income directly from Google, do you?
Definitely not. I don't know if Google knows I exist, to be frank. Google, they do a lot of things, but don't always seem to know what everybody is doing. So I'm just on my own, just helping educators use Chromebooks.
All right, you do a great job of it, John. Jessica is here, but she's having some technical difficulties. It looks like she just dropped out, so hopefully she'll be able to join us. And Jessica, if you can hear this, maybe you need to hotspot on your phone. I don't know. It seems like your internet is being a little wonky. I want to get to our last guest here, but I also want to put this comment back up. Check this out. We've got Maximiliano Salibe from Argentina, so welcome to you. Lots of other North American educators joining us as well. All right, Emily, tell us about who you are, what your context looks like, and how Chromebook figure into your learning community.
Oh, thank you. Good morning. My name's Emily Russo, and I work for a cooperative in New York in the Hudson Valley, which provides services to multiple districts so that they can afford more things since they're so spread out in smaller communities. And I've been doing ed tech integration for model schools for the last 6 years in the Hudson Valley. And we have been going one-to-one Chromebooks in different districts for the last 6 years, at least. I've been the integrating teacher, the one that comes in and coaches the teachers on how to integrate the Chromebooks and what they can do with them. And like John, I'm super excited about what you're able to do with a Chromebook. Even when New York decides to add new rules, which makes it a little more difficult for us when it comes to privacy, which is great. But at the same time, it's like, oh, I got to find a new way to do the thing I used to do. I'm sorry, we use Google Apps in a lot of schools, but we've also had to figure out how to make Office 365 work for some of our districts that use Chromebooks with the Office 365 suite, which can also provide some challenges. And I look forward to talking with you guys about it today.
Yeah, that might be something that comes up in that round of questions that we get to, Emily, in terms of what are some frustrations and challenges or some questions that you might have I find it really interesting the way Google Drive is opening documents from the Office 365 environment in that sort of docx, that artificial docx format. So we might get into the weeds there in a little bit. Just as we dig into this next round of questions, and Jessica, if you can participate or if you can hear me.
I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. So
I don't know. You gotta love Chromebooks, and I'm right beside my router. Can I introduce myself real quick, even though you can't see me?
please do. That would be great.
Okay, I'm Jessica Reed. I am a middle school special ed teacher. I teach ELA resource 6th, 7th, and 8th, and I'm also one of our tech people at our school. We have become Chromebook. This is our 3rd year with them. We provide the Chromebooks for the kids. It's been a little different with COVID because we used to have just the Chromebooks in the classroom, but now the kids take the Chromebooks with them to and from classes. Right. So that's been a little difficult. But we have the Lemino Chromebooks, and I personally have an HP. So.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, and that's something else that I hadn't really thought of, but John might be able to, and Emily, it sounds like you're both very qualified at a high district level to tell us maybe what are the best brands of Chromebooks to get into, and what do you favor? So we're going to get into our first round of questions here in a moment. I thought I would highlight a tweet that I noticed this morning from our friend Bruce Reicher, who is I want to say New Jersey. I hope that is correct. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that. But he tweeted something that really, I think, fits in nicely with question 2 here. What is working right now? What are some wins that you're having with Chromebooks? And so Bruce is presenting, I think, today at a conference in New Jersey. And he suggests 5 applications. And to me, all of these work really well on Chromebooks. So here we go. They are Wakelet, WeVideo, Book Creator. He talks about Twitter. That's not really one for the learners, I suppose. And he gets into filmmaking through his book Scripted. So I guess that's more like 3 or 4 apps. But he's getting into some of the creative piece around Chromebooks. So in terms of some wins that we're having with Chromebooks, I'm going to keep my comments short. As a teacher, I mentioned each of our classes have towers of Chromebooks, and I'm in a face-to-face environment, by the way. One thing that I really like about Chromebooks is just the simplicity. So they boot up quickly, they're reliable, and they do what I need them to do. And maybe I'll mention this as well, that I am sort of helping my middle school get into Seesaw integration this year. And because our Chromebooks are touchscreen and they have the basic webcam and mic features that you need, they do a great job. They really do a great job of allowing students to annotate images and demonstrate their learning in math and English and other subjects. So in terms of just dependability, reliability, and very limited service, those are some of the wins for me. But those are some of the basics, I guess. I'd love to hear from some of you. What is working in your environment? How are your students demonstrating learning and creating on Chromebooks? All right, so let's get into it. One comment coming in from the Staff Room podcast. Chromebooks are quickly becoming our go-to tech resource, shifting away from iPad dependency. So sort of like John was saying, they are getting away from, or how did you put it, John? The recovering iPad teacher?
Recovering, yeah. So, Tim, I would 100% concur with you. You know, the best feature of Chromebooks is how unremarkable they are. They just work. Like you turn them on and they just work. You don't have to worry about updates, versions. So I actually do some of the IT management for a couple of districts as well, and I can remotely fix issues, push out extensions. It's so reliable. You know, you don't tend to focus on things that are just going well, like the fact that you never have to think about it. You forget. But that truly is the beauty of it. And, you know, as more and more teachers are, going back to remote learning, the fact that you can with a pretty good deal of certainty, know what your students are seeing on their screen when they're on their Chromebook, because again, there's no differences in operating systems. Like, oh, you're on the old version of the app. Like, you just know that everybody's having the same experience. And, back to your question about what brand is good, it doesn't matter. I mean, I really don't care, because whether you buy an HP, a Lenovo, a CTL, like, I mean, you're getting the same software experience, regardless of what piece of hardware. So for me, that's the most exciting feature, is it just works.
Thanks, John. Justine, I mentioned the Seesaw recording. I've been so happy with the Chromebook capability. And by the way, I've always been in BYOD before this year. So I'm sort of trialing Chromebooks this year in my practice. Justine, what's one win, or tell us about one way that you appreciate Chromebooks?
Well, I think for younger students, or any student, is you open it and you log in. I think, I last year taught my grade 2s, their student ID number and their login and their password. I had it on a card. Little did I know how useful that, scaffolding them in the beginning of the year helped when they went home. Although not all of them had Chromebooks at home, many were using desktops at their parents. But they understood how easy it was to log in. They were attached to their Google ID that way. And using Google Classroom or whatever learning management system. We use Google Classroom and Canvas in our district. Canvas for the school that I'm in, the brick and mortars a lot more use Google Classroom. So I'm familiar with both, but it's just that accessibility. And I think, as much as you never talk about it, but the price points for Chromebooks are much more reasonable. Even the lower end, you can get a lower end for $200 to $250. We partnered with Staples here for our district to come up with plans for families and teachers as well, to purchase either on a payment plan or right out. And with, I always get the maintenance upgrade, because, my kid could be hard on his Chromebook. So those kind of things. And even myself, I could be hard on my Chromebook. But yeah, so those kind of, like the hardware stuff, you don't have to worry so much about. And I think that's key as a teacher, because if tech issues slow down a class, you're sweating as a teacher to kind of get, troubleshoot for people. And the less you have to do with that, the more the learning can happen. So.
Well, and one nice thing, you mentioned that your parents in your learning community are providing the Chromebooks. And that's really interesting, because it offloads the responsibility of the care of the device completely onto students and families. Do you find that your school and district are in the place of having to service or maintain Chromebooks, or are you asked to do that?
We did when we first started, because we had a leasing plan. So, but that was like a 3-year thing, and then we phased that out. But the ones that are in the school are still serviced by our IT department. So those are the ones that still exist on Chrome carts and those type of things. But the one-to-one, it's their device. They take it home. They're used to it as their device, which is a Pro. They have their own Chrome stuff set up on it, and they don't have to come in and see if somebody else is logged into their computer. So it's theirs. And because now it's been 5-6 years that we've been doing this, it's just become we're just used to it. So yeah.
Awesome. Scott, over to you. What are some wins in your world with Chromebooks?
I think a huge win is not having to do all these Windows updates all the time. Having been in a 9th, 10th grade classroom last year, and for the last few years with one-to-one Windows devices, the boot up time and time to get going has just been minimized so much. It's more about the user experience right away. There's not those heavy delays. I also love how quick and easy these are to fix. I apologize that the name's escaping me at the moment, but we have someone in a neighboring district that is using students to do repairs on their Chromebooks, and they get a certification for it that they can then use in the workplace. And so it's kind of like an ROP program. And I thought, that's great. Yeah. We're saving money. They're gaining a skill that they can use. And then in turn, enter the workplace with a higher skill set. I love it. It seems like a win for everybody, even though I do miss some features of the Windows devices.
Well, every school needs those tech experts, right? Those kids who can help out on the service. And that works a little better in the high school environment for sure. Thanks for that, Scott. It was good to see from our friend Eric Geis from the We Got Tech or the Got Tech podcast. He says, I have a student who's a senior, still rocking a Chromebook from middle school. Love the durability and reliability. I know that's not the case for every model, but he obviously has a good one. Emily, over to you. When you think of Chromebooks, what are some of the wins in your mind?
I work K through 12 in multiple districts, and I love being able to go from one district to another and know that it's going to work the same way, no matter what district I go to. The durability is really great if you have a quality one. Like I love the Lenovo Yoga, which they've just discontinued, I found out, and I'm like heartbroken about because our, 3rd through 6th graders have those as touchscreen ones. And for the last 6 years, they've really met the challenges of being passed around and, taken home during COVID lockdown. And, they're very durable, but the ones that they purchased for K2 were these smaller, and I don't remember the brand, but they were smaller and they were metal. And like every time a kid like knocked it into the corner of a desk, it would get dented or cracked. And it was just like really like crazy. But, being able to create, projects for the students that are, I can take portability from one grade to another or from one district to another and go, hey, if we do it this way, you can use the built-in camera on the Chromebook to record a podcast or to create a movie for your class or a presentation. And knowing that that'll work no matter where I go is paramount. And then just the ease of like the, extensions, like the ones that we, like I said, we have like privacy laws in New York that are really strict. But once we get one through the privacy process, using things like Cami, where the kids can annotate on the screen and write on PDFs and turn things in and record themselves and do all sorts of different things, like all that kind of built into a device that's inexpensive, reliable, and just works the way you think it's going to work. And you don't have to worry about, with when we had PCs, you'd go from one district to another and they wouldn't have a driver installed or they wouldn't have a camera built in. And like every Chromebook has a camera and it has a microphone and it has, touchscreen is dependent, but most schools in our area tend to go with the touchscreen because the price point is the same, roughly like it's like $50 or $75 more. The one unfortunate thing that we've seen is that our distributors, because we're at end of life of our first set of books, is that the price has gone up because of COVID. So now trying to get our hands on what we had before at the same price is more difficult or becoming more difficult.
Yeah, price is always a factor for every school and district to keep in mind and contend with, right? And dollars are never, we never have quite enough dollars to go around. So that's definitely an issue, and we might come back to that one. I'm looking through the comments. I know somewhere in here, Brian Carpenter made the comment about web apps. And I think he said something like, if I can't teach it on the web, then I'm not interested in using it. So that's a strong show of support for cloud-based apps. And it's such an interesting landscape in education right now because we have our Adobes and we have our Microsofts making amazing software. But on the other hand, the cloud-based apps are becoming more powerful all the time as well.
Tim, I'll make a hot take here. Now, my love of Chromebooks, people sometimes misunderstand, and they think that I just love Google or I love Chrome. But really what you're saying, when I'm all in on Chromebook, I'm saying that I am all in on the web. I believe that the internet is the best and most effective platform for creation, learning, exploration, etc. So if I have to pick Windows, iOS, OS X, or the web, I'm picking the web. Trying to predict the future of technology is a foolish thing, but I'm pretty confident that the internet is going to be around for a while. Okay, it's not exactly a bold take there. And I would suggest, like you mentioned, Windows or Microsoft and Adobe Creative Suite, you look at all these companies, they're all shifting to the web. I mean,
Right.
Adobe Suite has already shifted to a subscription model, which is just one step closer to full web apps, 5G, getting closer to speeds. It can handle video editing, in real-time access. So, we're moving in that direction, and that is why I like Chromebooks.
That's a great hot take, John. Thank you for that. And I would expect no less for sure. I was disappointed last year to discover that Adobe Rush is not fully available in the cloud.
What the story is with that. I mean, it was promised a year and a half ago, and we're still waiting.
Yeah, that was a disappointment. Jessica, I hope we've resolved your tech issues. It looks like we're getting
I'm
clear
good.
here. Tell us about some of the wins of Chromebooks in your world. How do you see Chromebooks working really well?
So I teach in a special ed classroom. I teach regular English, but it's just in a small group. The Chromebook's really nice because I'm able to differentiate my instruction a lot better. And I'm able to get some work samples for my kids, a lot quicker sometimes because we don't like to put paper to pencil. And it's great because I love using apps like Flipgrid, especially for students who are struggling with writing. They can tell me verbally, but because it's like when they talk, you can tell me, I know they mastered it, but when they try to put it paper to pencil, it doesn't work. So Flipgrid is great because I have that recording of like, hey, they do understand. Now, we do have some problems, though, because we have some kids who are too smart for their own good and have figured out how to do things that they shouldn't. While I'm proud, like I have a student who was trying to do a YouTube channel during school, but he's blocked from YouTube. He figured out how to open up like a guest portal, which I was like, I'm so proud of you for doing that. That's great. But that's not what you're supposed to do. Like, I'm excited. I'm like, you're a techie. This is great. But let's not do it during class.
Yeah.
So I enjoy working with the Chromebooks. We have the Lenovo's. We've had them for 3 years. I like my HP just because it's a touchscreen and it's much easier to use for myself. But the kids really enjoy having the Chromebooks. They actually prefer the Chromebooks to doing paper to pencil now.
Well, that's a big jump to make. That's a big step to take. I love your point about when a kid manages to hack the system or in a way, like sort of figure out a loophole somewhere. You have to appreciate their innovation and ingenuity sometimes. And it actually says more positive things than negative, or at least that would be my encouragement for teachers. Often it's those students, right, who are prepared to think outside the box and find creative solutions. So we've had a fun round of talking about what's really working for teachers using Chromebooks. I want to get into the next question, which is, what are some frustrations or challenges or questions that you have? Over on Instagram, I'm trying a separate live stream on Instagram, and our friend Kelly Bari is saying, does anyone else have issues with Chromebooks with Zoom? If so, any suggestions? So that is actually something that resonates for me because sort of a long story, but my middle school staff team conducted our Meet the Teacher night, and I think we did another event on Zoom, and a lot of our teachers do have Chromebooks. Those are the devices supplied by the school, and so that's what they go with in many cases. And there were a couple of hiccups. I can't recall just now exactly the nature of them, but I know there were a few problems here and there. So I don't feel like Chromebooks are the greatest device to host Zoom calls on, at least at this moment. And I can't even recall exactly the reason why we went with Zoom instead of Google Meet. I think it was because our Google Meet is configured to only accept domain email addresses, and that would exclude a lot of our parent community. I think that was the logic there. But anyway, that's a small frustration. I'm with Kelly on that one. I know maybe we'll... how should we set this up? I was going to say we can go to John last and he can answer all of our frustrations here. But John, why don't we just say you can jump in at any time, and Emily, it sounds like you're very qualified to speak to any of these as well. But I want to go back with the question. We'll start with Justine. Are there any frustrations, challenges, or questions that you have in terms of what you'd like to be able to do with Chromebooks?
I think for working, depending on we had a review last year of our one-to-one, and lots of different discussions came up depending on the grade levels, but it really comes down to if a teacher is able to use it appropriately for their teaching practice. So a lot of our math teachers struggle with it. It might just be, professional development, I think, still is a challenge to provide enough money, time, resources, all the things that teachers need, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. It would fall on the teacher to do that, and sometimes it's just a comfort level with the what you need to actually deliver to your students. And good, bad, ugly of remote learning is kind of kicks a few people off the cliff of having to figure some things out because of the emergency remote situation we were in. That there is ways to do things, but it can be time consuming. So there's always that. So although using a device and having a Chromebook, and if you're really good with it, it can be awesome. But some students, we still have to remember, aren't tech savvy. It takes them longer for some things to do, and sometimes their Chromebook doesn't keep up with that, depending on the age of it, how much extensions they have on there sometimes, interfere with things. So kind of those things. So there's always that downfall in teaching as to what are we using pedagogically that actually needs to work properly, or are we just filling the time because we have a device? And I think that's always a question I ask myself, although I'm online teaching, so I have to work at it a little bit more.
Wow, thank you. We needed to hear that at least once in this conversation. Pedagogy before technology, right? What are we trying to achieve? What are our learning goals and intentions for our students? And then think about the technology path to get there, right? So excellent point there. Thank you. And you brought up some other things as well in terms of some of the front loading that needs to happen with teachers, right? To give teachers the know-how and the support that they need. There's some conversation going on here. Brian mentioned I can do about 85% of what I like to do on a Chromebook, but for some things, a PC is just necessary. And so, Brian, if you can give us more examples of something that you can't do on your Chromebook, go ahead and let us know. We've got more comments coming in from viewers. Scott, I want to get to you next. What is one thing that you would love to be able to see Chromebooks do for your learners and teachers?
I think John kind of hit on it. My biggest thing is accessibility of apps via the web. I think 5G that John talked about is going to help a lot with that, but I don't think it's here yet. I think it's still ways out. As a former graphic designer, I really love the Adobe Creative Suite, and I love those kind of high-end programs. I think there's some big wins, like getting Minecraft web-based. I think that's a no-brainer. That's a great resource for people. So I'm really glad that Microsoft made that happen. I would also like to see some more monitoring options available on Chromebooks. Currently, we use NetRef. Before, we used a program called Land School, which had some more options when we were on the Windows devices. It was a little bit easier to remote in and send messages and things like that. Much more difficult on the Chromebook. So if there are any suggestions for a great monitoring device for Chromebooks, that would be great. I'm all ears.
Well, I think the premier, John, correct me, or Emily, correct me here, but I think the premier name in that space is GoGuardian, right? They provide incredible controls. I think the only reason my school is not using it is because they may not be privacy compliant with my jurisdiction where I teach, but we have some other options. And of course, I would say, Scott, too, I'm not really pushing back. I'm just thinking out loud that the Google Admin Console does give incredible control within a school and district that if you're in a BYOD situation, you just don't have. So I think what you're talking about in terms of the oversight is a really important piece, though. John, I'm putting this question to you. It's probably a difficult one, but what are some frustrations that you have, or where, maybe this is the way to frame it, where would you like to see Chromebooks go from here?
Yeah, it's headed in the right direction. I do think that districts need to make a mental shift in the flow of money. So as we've already mentioned, Chromebooks are significantly lower priced than, other devices. However, they do need to reserve some of that savings and prepare to subscribe to some of the top-notch creative tools. So I'm thinking about WeVideo, Soundtrap. Scott, to your question, I am not aware of any free classroom level monitoring solutions. Now, the admin console will give kind of like district level, but if you want the ability as a teacher to lock screens, pull student attention back, then you're going to have to pay. So whether it's Bloxy, GoGuardian, Securely, like there's lots of options out there that would be comparable to Land School, but you're going to have to pay for them. And not all districts really appreciate the fact you could buy your Land School license, which was perpetual, and you would just continue using it. Well, now it's a subscription model, whether it's Adobe Creative Suite or WeVideo or those tools. So you got to take some of that savings. So you're buying a $200 device. Well, then take $10 per student and put that in a pool. And as a district, decide what tools do we want to utilize. I mean, the most innovative things that are happening with Chromebooks are happening around the use of podcasting in the classroom, video production, graphic design. Like there's amazing things, but not everything can be free. And we have to make that mental shift. I mean, schools have budgets. You just have to decide how you wish to spend that money. And I don't know that we've made the mental shift to, licensing web-based software. We're used to, once every 5 years upgrading to, the new version of Adobe CS, or, we're still running, Office 2010. We're going to it doesn't work that way anymore. And I still think we're making that shift.
I think the growing body of subscriptions, I mean, everything out there from Gimkit to Kahoot to everything we possibly want to use in the classroom is asking, they're on that freemium model. And so, John, I think you're right. Schools have to sort of make their peace with this idea of a growing body of subscription money per student. And, if that is irritating or frustrating to districts, to go back to your example, I don't think the old model of we're going to download the latest version of Adobe Premiere or whatever every 5 years, I don't think that works anymore either, because all of these software packages update so quickly that, trying to refresh every 5 years isn't effective. Emily, let's go to you. What is one thing that you would like to see Chromebooks add to their growing repertoire of offerings?
I think that overall, it's pretty much what everyone else said as far as being able to access things through the web that are necessary for creation. A lot of my schools, because I run PD and I always focus on students being creators, not consumers, and districts reserve money to buy things like iXL and, RAS Kids or things like that, which is it has a place. But if you want the kids to be able to show learning and show understanding, they need to have the tools available to them to create those things. So I'm constantly trying to, kind of origami flip Google Slides into something that isn't a slide deck. So I use that to make digital books, or I use it to record podcasts, or I use it to create things for the kids to work with. But when I get to the higher level, like my tech classes, when you have kids in technology class and they have to use a CAD drawing program, there are some web-based ones that are decent, but nothing compares to the stuff that is already in their labs on faster processing machines. And so if we could get some more higher level tech, editing software, for video and for photos, to get CAD software that's easy to use online, that's reasonable, and also adheres to the privacy policies, because, that's, if it's free, you're the product, right? They're using your information, they're tracking you, you're paying it with your privacy, paying for it with your privacy. And so we need to consider our students when we do that, So how can we get those higher level tools at a reasonable cost? Because then you start talking about, oh, it's per seat, per kid, per this, and it should be bundled. And I know Google was trying to go there with like the Wii Video and Soundtrap, and they were going to put it together in like a subscription package, but trying to convince my district that, you know, you're saving money on the Chromebook and not providing PCs and updates and things like that. So put that money into the creation software and these subscriptions. And that's my challenge right now, is trying to show them that like it's a great tool, but it doesn't do everything without some of the additional things being purchased, and thinking that through all the way. So higher level web-based apps would be great. I think a lot of companies are going there. I've seen some really good CAD programs, but when I talk to my tech teachers, they get frustrated because they're like, but on my PC, I can do a floor plan and I can build a virtual house, and on a PC or on a Chromebook, I can't do that without purchasing software. Because things like Google Home Designer or Home Builder or whatever it is, you know, like that doesn't meet our privacy policy. So web-based apps that meet educational privacy policy issues and just ease of use would be really, really great to have. And then going back to the Zoom thing, like Zoom, you know, I made a chart in the spring for my teachers. I was like, if you're on a PC, you get these tools. If you're on an iPad, you get these tools. And if you're on a Chromebook, you get a handful of tools. And so presenting on a Zoom from a Chromebook is really difficult because you don't have all the tools and the ability to do as many things as you want to do. But I've been talking to Zoom people that work in the company, and they're just like, yeah, we're trying to get it there, but web basing that is more difficult than, I don't know why, but they're working on it to get some of those tools like the annotation, the whiteboard, being able to start a poll from a Chromebook. You can't do that. And some of our teachers, that's all they have is the Chromebook. So if you're in a remote situation, it becomes very difficult to be as interactive and engaging with a Chromebook from home.
Could you expand on that last part, Emily? Like, I know John would ask, well, what can't teachers do? And I think you're onto something, but talk about what you can do on a PC or a Mac that you can't do on a Chromebook in terms of the interaction.
So the annotation feature doesn't work for students on the Chromebook. So if you put something up and asked a student to like circle something or write on something as a group, you can't do that. If the student and you are both on PC or Mac, or, you know, either or in a mix, you would be able to do that. The whiteboard feature doesn't work for presentations. So you can't demonstrate things for the students. You actually have to open up like Google Canvas is something we'll use to like pull up, share the screen, and then write on that so that the kids can see. But you can't use the one that's built into Zoom. You can assign people to breakout rooms, but it's a little more slow to jump from room to room on a Chromebook than it is on a PC or a Mac. I'm trying to think of what the other features were, but yeah, I made them a matrix, and then I actually ended up giving it to Zoom.
Doesn't work either. Yeah. I get invited to present, and I can't use the emojis.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Emoji feedback.
Like all the host controls don't work on Chrome either. It just isn't optimized for Chrome web app.
No.
Yeah. So Google has a little bit, it sounds like all stuff that can be resolved within their ecosystem, but they've got a little distance to go. And we do want to say, by the way, if I'm assuming all of our districts are Google hosted. So in terms of the email and the access to the Google workspace. And so Google Meet has made some really nice iterations just in the last week or two. Jessica, I want to get to you, but I just want to highlight one teacher's comment here. I'm going to throw this back up. Look at this teacher. Stephen Mosley says, I spend my own money on app subscriptions like Socrative, Book Creator, Nearpod, and so on. Wow, Stephen, that's always, I always admire the generosity of teachers, but that's a slippery slope because it sort of sets a precedent, and we want to protect our teachers. So, John, there you shared an idea of sort of a $200 per kid allowance. I think that would be a dream for teachers to work with.
Well, it'd be $200 per teacher. So, the idea of buying a district license to things like WeVideo and Soundtrap, well, That's great if I'm the one who really wanted it, but if only 10% of the teachers are going to use what you just paid $5,000 for, then it's probably a better idea to just give everybody $200 and let me, like, I want Cami, I want Soundtrap, I want WeVideo. You're not going to get all of them. In general, I mean, I spent a lot of time looking at the prices for ed tech companies. I'm very interested in the business side. Pretty much every ed tech company, their premium plan is under $200 for an individual teacher. I mean, WeVideo, I think, is $120, $130. Like, you could probably get 1.5 or 2 tools for $200. So let the teachers pick. I mean, if you're a math teacher, I mean, does WeVideo make sense for you? Maybe Cami is a better choice, or Pear Deck. So let them decide.
I think that's a problem of forethought and planning, because when you're talking about privacy issues and student privacy and things like that, and then consistency, because one of the biggest feedback issues we had during COVID was this teacher's using Class Dojo, and this teacher's using Remind, and this teacher's using Schoology, and this teacher's using, and that was in one district. So if you have 3 or 4 students in the district and you're trying to, keep up with what your students been assigned, you don't necessarily know what tool, and then the kids aren't trained in it. But to your point, like, I would love for my teachers every year to sit down in the spring and go, this is what we want to be able to accomplish in the coming year. What apps would, so you can buy, because I think you're right. We need to buy it for specific teachers and keep better record of who's actually using it, because they do buy things for the whole district and then like 5 teachers use it. And then it just sits there and no one, you spent money on stuff and they're like, well, we pay for it, but no one uses it. Okay. And it's like, well, did you provide training? And did you ask anyone if they actually wanted that?
Right. And COVID just throws a whole wrinkle in it. I mean, I totally agree, Emily. Right now, standardization and simplicity is probably top of the list. So, this is not a great time to be implementing new tools and learning strategies. We're in survival mode right now. I guess the optimist in me hopes that at some point we will move beyond this and be back to, normal in-person teaching.
What you just described, Emily, sounds a little chaotic, and I'm sure, like you said, it's sort of born out of the survival mode that we're all in. But for teachers and divisions or districts to be using different tools all over the place, it would, I can see nightmares happening for parents. I also, Jessica, I'm really trying to get to you. I keep getting hit by different really important points here. One side disadvantage of this adding growing numbers of subscriptions is the privacy nightmare that sort of unfolds, and depending on privacy policies, that can be a real problem. So that's a little bit different than the old model of downloading and installing local software per device. But let's keep the privacy issue in the back of our mind. Jessica, what questions do you have? What isn't working well? What would you like to see Chromebooks add going forward?
I agree with it would be great as a teacher if I could just choose my own subscriptions, because we actually had several taken away from us due to money. And I actually I begged and pleaded to have vocabulary back, because I use it. Like, I can prove to you, we have the data. I mean, there were several of us who were just like, why are you taking it away? Like, I don't use these 2 other products that you bought. Like, there makes no sense. I don't use them. I use Brain Pop, but you took it away. It was very frustrating. And I mean, I'm willing to pay the $350 myself to get a subscription, but I don't get all the teacher stuff that you would if you have a school subscription. So it's very frustrating. No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, to your point, all of these apps need to provide good data, good analytics in terms of who's using what. And Seesaw, I know from firsthand experience, does a great job of that. But keep going, Jessica.
No, I was just going to say, I think what's not working well for us is parents don't understand the Chromebooks. They don't understand how Zoom works. There's not because we were all kind of slammed into this pandemic, nobody really understood. The teachers and kids know how to use the Chromebooks, but parents don't. We have kids who are doing virtual. The parents have no idea how the Chromebook works. They don't understand that the kid has to be on the platform for them to get the lessons. I guess the parents' misinformation of a Chromebook's not a iPhone. You know what I mean? Like it's easy to work, but it's not something that you can just pick up. That's our biggest thing, is just having parents understand, hey, it is not just a regular computer. Like you have to use it, That's where I've had some frustration.
Yeah, there's definitely some parent education required in some cases. And, it's hard for parents, especially if they're not terribly digitally literate, to understand that a Chromebook doesn't store a whole lot locally. So that Wi-Fi is the lifeline. Well, our time is fleeting so quickly. I'm sad about that, but I want to get to this last question. And it is, what are some other tips, hacks, Chrome extensions, or other strategies that you can share? So if you've got some gold to pass around, that would be great to hear from you. I'll tell one fun thing that my school is doing, and I don't have the technical know-how, but my school locally has something called the Chromebook penalty box. And that's a good hockey term, but basically, if any of our middle schoolers are found gaming on their computer, instead of losing their device, which is, in my mind, a bad solution for the classroom, they get put in something called the Chromebook penalty box, which is basically this designated preset protocol that really limits the kid in terms of what they can do with their Chromebook. So it's a really, really tight, it's stuff like they can't view any images, stuff like that. I can't remember all the rules and restrictions, but it's a little bit painful, but it still allows them to participate in the learning process. And if anyone's really interested in that, I can try to get in touch with my IT department to find out how they do that. But all I have to do is email them with the name of the student and say, this person has lost their privileges, and they go in the Chromebook penalty box.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
That's what we do, but we don't call it the penalty box.
Okay, so something similar in your school. Justine, have you got a tip, hack, Chrome extension, or another strategy that you could share with the group?
Well, my teacher friends know I'm a bit of a Chrome extension junkie, so I did have to come up with some way to manage them. I do go through them regularly to see what I use and what I don't, and I disable a lot, and just to make sure it's not weighing down my Chromebook. I like OneTab, which it's like a little funnel at the top, and if I'm like, even before I came into this meet, I just one-tabbed all my tabs so I can go back to what I was working on later, but it doesn't take up a lot of my running time on my computer. That's been one of my favorite ones. I got lots of favorites, but that's one that works for me, especially if I need to go quickly online with my students and want to share my screen. They don't need to see all my tabs open. So, and for Control H to show history. My own children love that. I'll go, what have you been doing? Time of day, which website they were on. So Control H. Yeah.
Control H, that's awesome. And of course, I hope we all know, maybe we don't, or for the viewers as well, Control Shift T. You can use Control Shift T as many times as you need to bring back recent tabs. And so all of these hacks are helpful. I don't like, and I'm sure none of you enjoy getting into a police role in the classroom, but we do need to keep our students accountable and on track, right? They need that coaching help. Thanks, Justine. Jessica, have you got a favorite Chrome extension, tip, strategy, or hack to share?
I think my favorite thing is just obviously Flipgrid. I'm a huge fan of Flipgrid, any type of collaboration. I really, whether it's you use Microsoft PowerPoint or Google Slides, if you can have your kids collaborate, they're going to take so much more ownership of something. And I'm a big fan of having the kids try to use Google Sites or any type of website builder, because these are skills that they can use for future, because we don't know what type of jobs are going to be in the future. And I really like Read and Write, which is really great for students with disabilities to have things read off of the screen. So,
yeah, some great ones there, Jessica. Thank you. Thinking about Google Sites, I haven't used Google Sites enough. In fact, I really haven't used it at all. And I'm embarrassed to say in the last couple of years, done lots of multimedia stuff, but I haven't had my students building websites. The nice thing, and John, correct me or Emily, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but Google Sites can be restricted to the domain, right? In terms of protecting our kids. Yes. So if you're thinking about getting kids building websites, but you don't want the world to see it, Google Sites right within the domain is your ticket. Thanks for that, Jessica. I'm going to try to take that into my practice. Emily, what about you?
I think for a website that's really great that works with Chromebooks, if you're wanting to do quick and dirty editing, 123 Apps is a website that has the voice recorder and the video recorder, but it also has some basic editing tools so you can clip things and put them together. We've been using that as a podcast software because it is privacy compliant for what we're trying to do with our students. Sorry to hammer that stuff home so much, but New York really put the hammer down on us this year. And like, we've basically had to reinvent the wheel with all the projects that we do. So that site's been a lifesaver. And then if I do a lot of PD with teachers, and to give them experiences like students, there's a extension on Chrome called Funkify, and it will show you what it's like to be dyslexic or vision blind, or there's some other options in there just to if you have tremors. I have tremors, so having what it's like to control a mouse when you have Parkinson's or tremor issues, palsy, those kind of things. So using that during a PD to show teachers so that they're more aware of what some of the issues our students have when they're using a device was really, really eye-opening for those teachers. And then just a fun one, Brush Ninja. If you guys haven't seen Brush Ninja, it's like a flip book online, and the kids can make little like GIFs. And my kids have been using it. I say my kids, like I have like thousands of kids because I work in so many districts. But the little kids like using it to show process and understanding. And it's just something online that they can quickly draw out. And then it does like a quick animation of whatever they drew. We use it a lot for math with the younger kids, and that one's a lot of fun.
That looks like a lot of fun. So we've got Brush Ninja, Funkify, and 123 Apps. I want to take you back to 123 Apps really quick, Emily.
Sure.
Because this looks so powerful. So let me put it up on the screen because I've had some conversations with my podcaster friends lately about, what are the best apps for online recording and editing. So tell us about the power of this suite.
So what's really nice about it is, the Chromebooks have their own video recorder, but they don't have an audio recorder by itself. So you can use the audio recorder if your students are concerned about being on camera. It saves the file locally, so they can drag and drop it into slides. We use slides a lot. We also use Google Sites a lot with our students to create portfolios. So they just record right on the screen that you're on right now. It will pop up. It will ask them, to push play, stop. They can pause. I think it's 5 minutes of a recording. Okay. And then when they take the tracks in, actually you're in the cutter and editor joiner. So you can take multiple tracks. So our kids will record a podcast. So they'll ask all the questions, interview people on the Chromebook using the voice recorder. And then they'll take those files and put them into the joiner and the trimmer. First, they'll trim them, audio cutter, and they'll slice up the questions. So they take out ums and ahs and, pauses or mistakes. One of the things that I've really gotten on the kids really good at is that they will keep recording. They pause when they're recording something, and they'll just count 1, 2, 3 in their head, and then they'll keep recording so they don't have to re-record. And then they go back and just cut out any mistakes. And then they use Auto Joiner to put it back together to make one file. And then we upload it to a place where people can listen to it, whether that's slides or Google Sites. The PDF one's a little weird. I like this tool that you have up right now, the PDF IO. It's okay. It's just every time I try to use the split or merge tool here, if the file's too big, it seems to crash. So if it's like a 1 or 3 page PDF, it's fine. But like if it's like a 25 page PDF that a teacher has that they're trying to convert over to a Word document so then they can put it into Google Docs, it just gets really messy. We find Cami is a lot better at doing that. But there are some really great tools in here for teachers as well as far as the PDF goes. Same thing with
how good the deep fakes are going to be in like 10 or 20 years once these kids grow up and get like official tools. They're going to be good.
Oh yeah, they're going to be They're going to be crazy. And that's the thing is like, we were, looking at like our school districts weren't purchasing things like WeVideo. And it's like, okay, so we can record a video, but then there's mistakes in the middle of it. And the Chromebook doesn't let you go back and just clip out those mistakes. So what do we do? And 123 Apps has been a lifesaver for the non-paid editing tool.
Wow. Thank you so much. This workshop is worth it just for that, Emily. To see that page of tools is incredible. I've never seen that before. I know that writing on PDFs is always an issue, especially in the Chromebook world. I mean, I'm face-to-face, and teachers still their go-to when they're working with a PDF is to go down to the photocopier and print out 25 copies. But I try to remind teachers there are PDF writers that kids can use within Google Classroom, and there are advantages when we have remote learners who are stuck at home. So it looks like possibly some good PDF writers there. I always recommend DocHub, which is a Google Drive add-on, and you've mentioned Cami a few times, which I know is another big one. Let me just catch up on a few comments here. Johnson Cloud Audio Recorder is a super simple site for recording audio clips. Brian, 123 Apps for podcast software. Brian, why have you not told me about 123 Apps? Come on, man, don't hold out on me here. Brush Ninja again. We've got Maximiliano Celibe. Could you please make a list of the apps and sites you recommended? Oh boy. Okay, I will do my best, sir. But watch the video, rewind the video. This will be on YouTube. And okay, and I think we're all caught up. A good idea for big PDF is ilovepdf.com. Oh, I think he's responding, Emily, to your comment about PDFs crashing, or that part that you mentioned about the PDF writer not being able to handle big ones. So John, we're trying to wrap things up here, but you must have a ton. And
make it real quick. You just mentioned writing on PDFs, and so my tip, one thing that I've been really looking at recently are styluses. So I just put out a YouTube video. Been doing a lot of work with digital pens. I know Emily and several. I was very excited at the number of you who have touchscreen Chromebooks. Personally, I always recommend them. I personally will not buy a non-touch Chromebook. Very few Chromebooks come with a digital stylus, and even the ones that do, they're pretty lousy to begin with. So a stylus, a digital pen, is a great way to add additional capabilities onto your device. The ability to write, draw, sketch, doodle, Brush Ninja, like a lot of these things. Like you can do some stuff with your finger, but to do really fine detail, a digital pen is very helpful. And the latest Chromebook update is that all new Chromebooks 2020 forward are USI compatible. So USI is essentially USB for pens. So any USI pen works with any USI device, whether it's a PC, a Chromebook, it just works great. You don't have to think about it. So new Chromebooks will be USI compatible.
Thank you, John. John's got a ton to share, and when we sign off here and we each share how we can be reached, I know John will let us know about his website and his podcast. Super helpful. Another helpful guy in the EdTech space, Scott, have you got a quick tip, hack, strategy, Chrome extension to share?
Yeah, we mentioned Cami. I think a big strategy, I think it was Emily that brought it up, like supporting apps for districts. So I'm thinking from the district level now, if you want to support your teachers, support certain apps, you want to push something through, a great way is to take whatever trainings you have and just upload them to YouTube. We've done that. I'll throw in our link in the comments right now to our Instructional Tech YouTube page. And it's a great resource. Teachers can go back, see what it is, and we've seen nothing but an increase in engagement and usage from our teachers and students through the YouTube page. So I highly recommend you throw whatever items you're doing for training and PD on there and share it out.
That's a great suggestion. Thanks, Scott. As we wrap up, I want to give each of you an opportunity to let people know how they can connect with you. You've each shared so much, so many valuable insights, and I know I'll be enjoying as I go back and rewatch the tape. So Justine, starting with you, let us know where you can be found on all the social. If you've got any blogs, books, podcasts, anything to share, YouTube channels, here's your opportunity.
I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Justy Mays. My main connections for growing my professional learning network, and the rest will to come. No other
There are no
books
pressure,
or blog or anything
and
like that.
this is definitely survival mode for teachers. So we're not expecting teachers to be everywhere at once. Jessica, how can we connect with you?
Sure. My Twitter is at Kentucky Girl in Alabama, KYN or Girl in Alabama, because I'm a Kentucky graduate, but I live in Alabama with my husband. My Twitter or my Instagram is JLReed2014. And yes, please keep in touch with me. I am in the process of writing a book through EduMatch called The Collaborative Prenup. It is my Google Innovator project. So that will be something hopefully will be published sometime later in the next fall. So very excited about that.
Give us that title again, Jessica. I heard prenup.
The Collaborative Prenup. My husband is an attorney, and he, whenever you go into a classroom and you're collaboration with two teachers, whether it's SPED or, general ed, sometimes it's like a marriage. It's going to be great and you're wonderful, but then sometimes by December, you're ready for a divorce. So you need a prenup. So that's my book about co-teaching, collaboration, and how a collaborative prenup. And my husband is an attorney, so we have talked about celebrity prenup several times. So there you go.
That's hilarious, and we love the content coming out of EduMatch. Emily, over to you. How can we connect with you and learn with you going forward?
I'm on Twitter at EKG Teach Tech. On Instagram, I'm ed_tech_Emmy. That one tends to be more of what I'm doing with students in the classroom. So because of COVID, it hasn't really been super updated. But I also participate in a weekly teacher question and answer with video and audio engineers online, and it's called Office Hours with Alex Lindsay. He does a focus on education. So he's looking for educators that want to come on and help share. So if any of you are interested, you just Google that. You'll find it on YouTube and be able to get on. So I'm there most Saturdays. And then that's about it. I'm still working on trying to so-called sell myself. Don't really look at. I love the name of Jessica's book. That's awesome. I can't wait to look at that, because co-teaching and that marriage relationship idea is it's real.
That's actually kind of like my side hustle is I have presented several times. I'm actually presenting today later on with Camp Engage for Nearpod. I love talking about all things SPED and all things collaboration. So that's my side.
Well, and Jessica, if that's something that we can jump into, I don't know what everyone's Saturday looks like, but if you want to share that information for the Nearpod seminar, is it too late for teachers who are watching?
No, you can go ahead. It's Camp Engage. Just go to nearpod.com or just check out Twitter. It's Camp Engage. There's a ton of sessions. It's all day. I'm presenting at 3 or 4. I don't know. Sometime today. It's on my calendar. And it's just it's Nearpod employees, Nearpod speakers, and then breakout sessions with Nearpod pioneers who actually, how we use stuff in the classroom. So it's something you could actually take and possibly use it, Monday morning if you have Nearpod, the free or the paid version. So.
Well, I'm sure some will watch this and say we didn't touch on Nearpod and Pear Deck enough, because those are big players in the remote learning spaces. So look forward to hearing what you have to share, and I'm glad to be connected with all of you. Some of you I wasn't connected to before this. John, how can we follow you, and what are you offering that you can share with teachers?
Yeah, easiest place to catch up with me is on my website, chrmbook.com. That's got my podcast, blog, links to all my social. Very active on YouTube. A lot of Chromebook related videos on my YouTube channel as well. So just go to chrmbook.com and you'll get links to all of it.
All right. And John mentioned YouTube. He's doing a ton of really user-friendly, viewer-friendly tutorials around Classroom and Meet and Chromebooks and everything related to the Google Workspace. I'm working hard at calling it the Workspace, not the G Suite. Scott, you get the honor of taking us out here. How can we connect with you and learn more with you?
Well, thanks, Tim. Really appreciate it. Appreciate everyone. You can follow me on Twitter at Mr. Noons Teach. That's where I'm most active. I'm on the other social media sites as well, but that's where you're going to get the most conversation from me. And then please follow my podcast, and you can hear Tim. His episode just dropped on Education Today at anchor.fm/ed today, or my other podcast, TNT EdTech Podcast at www.tntedtech.com.
All right. Awesome. Fantastic. Well, I want to say a huge and humble thank you to each of you, all 5 of you, for sharing your time generously with me this morning. I've taken you 10 minutes over time, so I apologize for that, but I hope it was a valuable conversation in terms of some of the questions and insights that we shared here today. Such a pleasure to connect with all of you, and let's make sure we stay in touch and continue learning together going forward. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Bye-bye.